My mother-in-law actually sold my house while I was on vacation in Hawaii and spent the deposit money on a cruise before I even landed. You really cannot make this level of audacity up, and if I hadn't lived through it, I wouldn't believe it was possible for a human being to be this entitled. Here's the situation. My husband David and I have been married for 3 years. David is a teacher and the kindest man alive, but his mother, Karen, is a total nightmare. She has always hated that I am a successful software engineer while her son is a teacher, as if my success somehow diminishes him. I bought my house with my own hard-earned money before I even met David. From day one, Karen started calling it our house. I corrected her constantly, reminding her it was my house, but she just never listened. Last month, David and I finally took a much-needed 2-week vacation to Hawaii. I made the biggest mistake of my life and gave Karen a spare key just so she could water my plants. That was it. Water the ferns, keep the basil alive, and leave. But when we pulled into the driveway after a long flight, my heart absolutely stopped. There was a massive "for sale" sign hammered into my front lawn. I didn't even have time to process it before I saw the moving truck. I ran inside and there was Karen, standing in my living room, giving a tour to a group of strangers and pointing out my furniture like it was part of the deal. I screamed at her, asking what on earth she was doing. She looked at me with this terrifyingly calm smile and said she had arranged a private sale. She told me that David and I didn't need such a big house, so she sold it. Her plan was to use the money to buy us a tiny apartment, and then she was going to keep the remaining profit to buy David a new car and fund her own retirement. She had actually accepted a $20,000 cash deposit from a buyer without a single legal document in my name. She thought she was a genius. She thought I would just roll over and accept it because she's family. But she didn't know 2 things. First, you can't sell a house you don't own. Second, the buyer she had taken the cash from wasn't a stranger. It was my old friend from college who happens to be a shark of a real estate lawyer. He had recognized the address, realized what she was doing, and played along to record every single word of her illegal scam on tape. When the truth came out, Karen turned to David, expecting him to back her up. But David looked at his mother with pure disgust. He cut her off right then and there. We demanded the $20,000 back immediately. That is when Karen turned pale. She admitted she had already spent $10,000 of it on a non-refundable luxury cruise ticket and designer bags. She had blown half the money in 2 days. My lawyer friend stepped in and told her she had 2 choices: return every cent immediately, or we would file a police report for grand theft and real estate fraud, and she would be looking at a minimum of 5 years in prison. She started sobbing, saying she had no money left. Then I remembered the one thing she cared about: her grandmother's antique diamond ring. She always bragged about how it was her retirement security and worth a fortune. I told her to give me the ring to settle the debt or go to jail. She screamed, she cried, she refused, but my lawyer started dialing the police. She terrified, she finally handed it over. I took the ring straight to an appraiser the next day, expecting to sell it to cover the money she stole. The appraiser looked at it for 2 minutes and started laughing. He told me the diamond was actually a piece of glass from the 1950s, and the setting was gold-plated brass. The whole ring was worth maybe $50. I went back and told Karen that her retirement fund was a lie. The look on her face when she realized she had destroyed her relationship with her son and committed a felony, all for a piece of glass, was priceless. She is now facing the lawsuit and she has absolutely nothing left. The diamond ring my mother-in-law gave me to avoid jail was worth $50,000, but instead of keeping it, I found out the ring actually belonged to a museum, and she had stolen it decades ago. I didn't just take her ring, I took her dignity, her freedom, and her entire retirement dream in one fell swoop. Here is how the ultimate karma finally hit Karen. After everything she put me through, trying to ruin my wedding and destroy my marriage, she thought she could buy my silence. She literally handed me this massive, sparkling rock and told me it was a family heirloom, something to make up for all the misunderstandings. She was terrified I was going to press charges for her previous stunts, so she offered up the crown jewel of her jewelry box. I took the ring, but not because I forgave her. I took it because something felt off. Karen is cheap. She doesn't just give away 50 grand unless she is hiding something massive. I took the ring to an expert jeweler the very next day. I expected him to tell me it was a high-quality fake or maybe worth a few grand. Instead, the guy goes pale. He puts on his loupe, calls over the manager, and they start whispering. I'm standing there sweating, thinking maybe I'm about to get arrested. Finally, the jeweler looks at me and says, "This isn't just a ring. This is the rose heart diamond." It was a famous piece that vanished from a local museum over 40 years ago. It was a cold case that had baffled the police for decades. My mind started racing. I went home and started digging through old records and ancestry sites. I needed to know how Karen, a woman who complains about the price of milk, got her hands on a stolen national treasure. I found the connection. Karen's mother used to work the night shift as a cleaner at that exact museum in the 80s. Karen didn't inherit a legacy, she inherited a crime scene. She must have swiped it when she was younger or taken it from her mother. And then she spent the next 40 years pretending it was old family money. She had been wearing a felony on her finger to every Christmas party. I had a choice. I could have just gone to the local police station, but I wanted to make sure this hurt. I contacted the museum trustees directly. I set up a meeting and placed the ring on their conference table. You should have seen their faces. They were in shock. Because I returned it voluntarily and gave them the full story, they offered me a reward, $25,000. But the best part was that they immediately reopened the theft case with Karen as the prime suspect. Karen was in the middle of packing for her dream retirement cruise. She had been bragging about this trip for months. She had bought all these new designer bags and clothes. The police showed up at her door 2 days before she was supposed to sail. They didn't just arrest her, they raided the house looking for other stolen goods. Her cruise was canceled instantly. I made sure to return every single designer bag she had bought to the stores to get the money back for David, my husband, who was absolutely crushed by the truth. David finally saw his mother for who she really was. He blocked her number and cut her off completely. She lost her son, her freedom, and her reputation in the span of 24 hours. A few days later, she made bail and showed up at my house. She was a mess, crying and screaming at my front door, begging for forgiveness, asking me to drop the statements. She thought she could manipulate me one last time. I didn't even open the screen door. I just walked out with a sign I had prepared. It was a for sale sign for her house. I handed it to her through the crack in the door and told her she was going to need the equity for her legal defense. I looked her dead in the eye and told her to enjoy her retirement behind bars. I took that $25,000 reward money and I didn't keep a dime of it for bills. I booked a dream vacation for David and me to finally relax away from her drama, and I donated the rest to a charity that helps homeless people get back on their feet. Karen tried to buy my silence with a stolen past, but all she bought was her own destruction. The diamond ring my mother-in-law gave me to avoid jail was worth $50,000, but instead of keeping it, I found out the ring actually belonged to a museum, and she had stolen it decades ago. I didn't just take her ring, I took her dignity, her freedom, and her entire retirement dream in one fell swoop. Here is how the ultimate karma finally hit Karen. After everything she put me through, trying to ruin my wedding and destroy my marriage, she thought